This week we're going to be talking about informal and formal instructional supervision. One thing that I want you to remember about supervision in general is that it is about teacher growth. So anytime we have the opportunity to have an informal visit or even a formal visit, it's always a good thing for the instructor. Today, as we talk about informal and formal supervision, a couple of things to remember. First of all, we want to focus on teacher growth and we want to focus on their own personal development. Imagine if you are responsible for evaluating your physical education teacher. The question that I would ask is, how can you do it daily? It's probably going to be very difficult just because of the demands that you'll have as a supervisor, but it's something that we want to strive for. The thing we want to make sure that happens is we want to find opportunities for drop-in visits. Drop-in visits take just a matter of seconds. So if you're a supervisor, always find ways to be in communication, find ways that you can help hold your teacher accountable for their actions. But one thing to remember about teachers is that they do want supervisors to be visible. As a physical education teacher, I remember it was always important for me to have that communication, to have that contact with my supervisor, whether it was a principal or another physical education teacher who was providing feedback for me. I also want them to visit our classrooms. If you're the type of teacher who doesn't want people coming into your classroom, it probably means you have something you're wanting to hide. As a teacher, you need to be proud of what it is that you're doing in your classroom, and you should want supervisors to visit your classrooms on a very frequent basis. When you look at the two tools that chapter 3 talks about in your book, the first one talks about informal visits. When we think about informal visits, I notice the second bullet point says follow-up is needed. So my question is this: why should you follow up short visits? One of the reasons you want to follow up short visits is because you want to be visible. You want to make sure that you follow up the communication that took place between you and the teacher. You're also looking to promote good teaching. I think one of the things that we fall short at as supervisors is sometimes we talk about the faults of the teacher, but we don't talk enough about the good things that are happening. Sometimes when we focus on those good things, we tend to promote what's happening in the classroom. You also want to catch them in the act. You want to motivate teachers. You want to monitor their instruction. You want to provide support. But the question is this: is 3 minutes enough? Your book goes into good detail about whether or not 3 minutes is considered enough time. And as I said on the previous slide, anytime we can visit our teachers, that's a good thing. But is 3 minutes enough? I think the answer is you want to provide as much supervision and feedback that's needed for the situation that you're in. So if a teacher needs 5 minutes, if a teacher needs 10 minutes, find a way as a supervisor to provide that time for your students. The second tool that your book goes into has guidelines for the informal visits. You'll notice on these, you'll notice that there's a list of 8, and I want to kind of highlight just a couple of these. Number 1 says informally observe all teachers. And I think the reason it says this is because we need to keep all teachers accountable for their actions. Number 4 says have fun. I think this is a general rule, but a rule that if we highlight, we emphasize, it's not only going to be enjoyable for the teacher, but it's also going to be enjoyable for the students. And then number 8, make visits invitational. In other words, one thing we need to remember is that some teachers may want you to visit. So in other words, give them the opportunity to ask you to come into their classroom to be able to observe their teaching. With formal observations, it requires a pre-observation and post-observation conference. And the question becomes, why? I think the main reason is that it prevents the observation from becoming useless. If I come in and I observe, yet I don't have any type of conference with you as a teacher, what good does it do? I see you come in, I see you observe my classroom, but I receive no communication otherwise. So what was the point of the observation if we don't have any type of conference to discuss what happened? And then finally, when we look over chapter 3, kind of in summary, there's a couple of things that I think are important for us to discuss. Teachers need feedback more than once or twice a year. The reason is once or twice doesn't tell us a lot about the teaching that's taking place. Number two, observations lose value if they are fault finding or based on a report from parent or colleague. As a supervisor, I want you to observe because you care about their teaching and you want to help. And then finally, number three says effective supervisors seek ways to assist. The thing I want you to remember about supervision is that we are all in it together. I'm a teacher, you're a teacher. We are all working to try to help students to learn in their classways, and as teachers to find ways to make sure learning occurs. So please, when you think about your role as a supervisor, remember we're all in it together. And then finally, this week, a couple of things you're going to be doing. You are going to be looking at 3 and even 4 different case studies in chapter 3. You'll notice in bullet point 1, it tells you what pages those case studies are found. And then the second thing, when we think about these case studies, the informal visits can be very brief. And so when we think about the situations that these groups of people are in, I want you to develop an observation form for physical education teachers or supervisors to use during the visits. You'll notice that your book, Figure 3.3, gives you a sample informal visit form that you can use, but I want you to create one that would be good for physical education teachers to use. The questions become this: would you submit this to a principal, and does it accurately evaluate the important factors for in an informal visit? So please, this week, as you consider the case studies and consider the discussions that have taken place, think about what would be a good observation form for an informal visit. And then lastly, your assignment for this week is to read the Jopert article that was sent to you by email. As I mentioned in the introduction video for this week, this is a great article. This is one that I like because it offers practical ways for you to supervise not only your own teaching, but the teaching of others as well. That wraps up chapter 3. I hope you guys have a great week.